I am a third culture kid and a bicentennial baby. And I feel like I have a purpose here in this little corner of the world because we have this amazing opportunity to just be, to connect. And yeah, I love people.
Everybody meet Chris Ekonemu Olson. You were born in upstate New York.
Yeah, I was born in upstate New York to Greek parents. My mom did not speak English when I was born, so my first language is Greek. My dad was an engineer for General Electric, and after I was born, we moved to Saudi Arabia. And so here I was, this child of immigrants, now an expatriate, a foreigner in the Middle East.
A global child.
Yep. And it was really interesting because it was the heart of Islam, and Mecca was there. Everywhere you went in Saudi Arabia, there were always arrows to show which direction Mecca was in. And because of the proximity of Saudi Arabia to Greece, we could travel to Greece twice a year. Just like if you were here in Pennsylvania and you had family in Florida, kind of a similar thing, which, it's kind of amazing.
You were raised in Saudi Arabia, and then?
Well, actually, during the Gulf War in 1991, we were on vacation in Greece, and Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and it was not safe for us to go back to our house in Saudi Arabia. But my dad was there working, and the company that he worked for did not have school after ninth grade for us, the children that lived on the compound. So everybody, you either went to boarding school or your family left, or sometimes if families had people here in the United States, the mom and the children would come to the States and the kids would go to public school, and then the dad would be in the Middle East. So I went to upstate New York for middle school, 8th grade, where kids were like, "Oh, you live in the desert? Do you live in a tent? Do you ride camels?" So I experienced the sort of like this generalized idea of what people had of like the Middle East. And by that point, the company was a Saudi company. It had been an American company, but in the 80s, it was sold to the Saudis. So now it was Saudi Aramco.
Okay.
And then I went to boarding school. I went to school in Connecticut. I actually was born in Saratoga Springs, but we lived in Schenectady. And then from Schenectady, we moved to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. And then from Saudi Arabia, I moved
bounce back and forth across the ocean.
Yep. And then I went to Kent, Connecticut, which was another wild experience because it was boarding school, which is like another whole universe.
Right.
And of course, like it was a very privileged thing, right, to go to boarding school. There were kids there like that had scholarships, but for the most part, it was like wealthy kids from all over the United States and all over the world. I got to meet really interesting people from abroad, and I lived abroad as well. So, and I had followed my brother there. So my brother and I both were in Connecticut, and then he came here to Lehigh University in Bethlehem. And so then I followed him to Bethlehem. So that's what really brought us to the Lehigh Valley. So then when my dad was retiring from his job after 26 years in Saudi Arabia, he and my mom were initially looking to retire in Greece. But my brother was here in Allentown, dating a girl here in Allentown. And he was like, "What? You're going to get a house in Greece? All these years I've been here in the States waiting for you to come, and now you're going to go to Greece?" He's a good firstborn Greek son. So mom was like, "Dimitri, πάμε Ameriki." And so here we are. They bought this house here in Allentown.
So how did you end up in the Peace Corp?
Well, when I went to college, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I knew that I liked people. I got a psychology degree, and I studied women's studies as well. And one of my roommates, her sister was a Peace Corps volunteer while we were in college, Kate, and she was in the Philippines. And she would write her sister Erin these long descriptive letters about what she's doing and jogging on the beach, and the villagers are running after her, and all these stories that just seemed so magical. And
Yeah.
so I have this psychology degree and I don't really know what I want to do. And I'm thinking, okay, well, how about I join the Peace Corps? So after college, I went home to Saudi Arabia, and I lived in Saudi Arabia for a year, and I applied to the Peace Corps, and I actually flew back to the States. I went to the World Trade Center. This was 2000. I went to the World Trade Center for an interview, and I interviewed with a man who was like, oh, do you want to go to West Africa or do you want to go to Central Asia? He pretty much told me like, oh yeah, which region of the world would you like to go to? And it was my college roommates who said, you should go to Africa because Asia has a lot of rain and it's cloudy and rainy. They kind of course, assumptions, right? It rained in Africa too.
I
But
would
they
hope.
knew that I was like, I needed sunshine. And so they were like, you should go to Africa because it's sunnier. So that's what took me to the Peace Corps in West Africa.
So talk a little bit more about your experience in the Peace Corps. What
Um,
was a typical Tuesday like?
well, the day of the week didn't really matter unless it was market day. So there's 3 months of training. They train you for 3 months all together, all the volunteers. And we lived in the villages among villagers, and then we'd come to the training site. And then after 3 months, they set us off into the wild. We're all in villages. A typical day. I would wake up and stretch. If it was really hot and muggy, I might take a bucket bath. I had no running water or electricity.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted warm water, I would just boil a small pot of water and pour that small pot into my bucket. So I'd have like lukewarm water. As a matter of fact, this is, I used this when I was a Peace Corps volunteer. We called it a Buddha. It's a teapot that's made out of plastic. It's actually full of water right now because I use it to water my plants. But this was what you used in your latrine area. Your bathroom was like one little hole in the ground, and you just used this thing. And then I would just make my rounds, and then I would go wander around the village and see what was happening, if anybody needed anything. Because initially, what we learned about development is people would go into places and just, oh, they don't have this and this and this, and we should do this and this and this. And then you don't have buy-in and nobody does anything. So what they taught us is just go and sit with the villagers. So I would do my thing in the morning and get ready, and then I would go wander around and I would sit with this group of ladies, or I would go wander around with the chief in the village. It was very simple and so peaceful, and it's almost like something like that could never happen again because this was pre-cell phones. Now it's different. Like even this was 2000. This was before September 11th. The Twin Towers went down while I was in Niger, leaning on a tree. Like one of the villagers came to get me and said, "Quick, they're bombing your country." They're bombing your country. And I went, and they had a little shortwave radio that they put on the BBC. And they said they couldn't understand English, but they were like, here's your language. And I remember leaning on a tree and listening to what had happened.
Uh-huh.
And it was amazing because Niger is a Muslim country. It's like 98% Muslim. There's some animists and some Christians as well, but mostly it's Muslim. Right. And I had grown up in Saudi Arabia. So I already had this perspective where I knew about Islam. And then September 11th happened. And of course, people who would, hear the news or learn what was happening outside of Niger were like, oh, Americans hate Muslims. And, and so you started to hear this. And then I would hear my villagers say, but wait, look, they called me Aisha. They named all of us volunteers and they gave me the name Aisha. They're like, but look, Aisha is here. She doesn't hate Muslims, and she's an American. Yeah. And it was then that I realized the importance of the Peace Corps and the importance of being a role model. And, we really were representing the United States. And like my village was 250 people. 250 people, like all made assumptions about the United States and the people in the United States based on me. Like me, one person. And I took that really seriously. Like I was very respectful. even though it was 120 degrees, I was not wearing like, shorty shorts and, bikinis. Like I was still I'd wear a sundress and then cover my shoulders. But it was amazing because these people that I lived with are some of the poorest people, like financially, in the world. They had nothing. They didn't even have vaccine. Like they weren't even vaccinated. When I first moved there, three babies, actually, not even villagers, three babies in 1 week died of measles in my first week of post. And I had to figure out that it was measles. I have this book. Hang on, I'll show you. I had to look in this book and figure out what was killing the kids. Where there was no doctor. Like the arrondissement. There's like little regional capitals. I walked up to our regional capital and I went to the minister of education or minister of medicine there. It was a woman, actually, which is amazing. And I was like, we have measles in the village. They're not vaccinated. And she was like, it seemed like she didn't really care. She wasn't really interested. And then I said, oh, do you have children? And she told me she had children. And then I said, are your children vaccinated? And she told me that her children were vaccinated. And I said, oh, I'm also vaccinated. I said, but my entire village of 250 people, including children, are not vaccinated. So they came out like 3 days later and they had these little vaccines that not even an injection, just a little, like, they broke off the little plastic top and vaccinated the whole village.
Look at you. Wow. The impact of one person is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. Well, and then I found out, like, okay, what do you guys want to do? What are you guys interested in? I'm a volunteer. I can write proposals. We can get a little bit of funding to do some projects. Like, what are you guys interested in? And so the villagers decided they wanted a community garden. So I wrote a proposal, and I think I got like $200 or something. It was like here in the States, like you could raise $200 pretty easily. And there it was like, wow, so much money. With that money, I bought a pump, it was like a Stairmaster pump. They had this water pump that you could just stand on and do this, and it would suction water from one tube and spurt it out the back. So what we did was we got a pump and we got cement and we got seeds, and we built two big like water troughs. So we could pump water into the water troughs and we could use water. Oh, and I think we also got like 10 watering cans or something. So we would pump water into the troughs. You could dip your watering can in there and get all the river water. And then the plan was eventually, when everybody worked hard and the garden was like not little tiny baby seedlings, we could just run the pump through and flood the whole, we could it was a really amazing idea. But guess what happened? This is why the greatest lesson that I learned was patience. Because even you go through all of this, you do all this work, because everything was growing and flourishing, but like most people were not coming and doing stuff in their garden. Most people like planted and they were like, okay, God will provide. Well, and they're like, what medicine are you using? Look at your garden and look at mine. And I'm like, the medicine of time. Which is like, they had all these proverbs. I was just using their own words back to them.
Wow.
So, but here's what happened to the garden. Part of the fence has fallen from the garden. It needs to be repaired. I could have fixed it, but that's like, I wasn't a parent yet, but now I see how it also relates to parenting. You could do everything for your kid. Sure, I'll take care of that. And then you don't have independent kids. You don't have buy-in. You don't have kids who don't really care about like a clean room. So I'm like, you got to fix the fence. And they're like, yeah, we'll fix the fence. Oh yeah, we'll get to the fence. Well, one morning, super duper early, I went to go like garden, and I noticed more of the fence had fallen. And guess what? The whole garden was gone because the Fulani cows had come and gotten into the garden overnight and didn't leave even like one string of like one little onion thing. The entire thing.
Oh, that is awful.
They had a feast. They were so happy, those cows.
I bet.
And the villagers, you would think they'd be like, they'd learn their lesson or whatever. They're like, Allah. I'm like, all right. Okay. There you go.
Patience.
Sanu batahan nazua. Slowly doesn't prevent her from arriving. That was the first proverb I learned. I think I should tattoo it on my arm. It's been like, there's so many times. And I even notice it here. Like even my boyfriend in the car driving, he's sort of impatient. I'm like, wow, the amount of patience that I gained from Niger, like if there was no other lesson that I learned, that would have been enough.
Right. And that served you, I'm sure, in education.
Oh, in every
I would think
capacity.
immeasurably.
In every capacity. I started teaching in 2005, and then I had a baby in 2007. And still all those years, like you know what's best for yourself. You develop your own way of doing things. And then when I had the opportunity to become a doula and to go to training, I went to the training and I thought, how do you approach a client without any of your biases? Like breastfeeding is, better. And why do you can do it without pain meds and, all the things that I believe. You can't bring that to your client. You can't go into a client's home and be like, oh, you're going to do this. It's just like the Peace Corps. You just go in and listen. Like, what do you need? Like, I'm here for you. What do you need me to do?
Tell me some more about that. How did you make the pivot from what you were doing? What interested you in being a doula? Where did that come
having
from?
A baby. So I had a baby in December 2007. I had health issues. I didn't know I have Crohn's disease, but I didn't know then that I had Crohn's disease. At the beginning of my pregnancy, everything was great. I was so excited. I just wanted to be a mom. And then at about 7 months pregnant, the baby was big enough to start really pushing on my intestines, and I started having a lot of pain. And I didn't know what the pain was, and I didn't understand it. And I had a midwife at the hospital. In New Mexico, they hire midwives in hospitals because it's cheaper to pay a midwife than a doctor. 2 months after I had my baby, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And then like another month later, my friend had a baby, and she said, hey, can you come help out? Can you come be my doula? And I only knew what a doula was from reading Ina May Gaskin's Guide to Natural Childbirth. She talks about doulas a little bit, but I didn't really know what a doula was. My only training was that like 3 months prior, I had birthed a baby in the same hospital. And so when I got there, her husband left and said, I'm going to go feed the chickens. And he left the hospital while his wife was in labor. 2 years later, she had another baby, the same friend, and this time at home. And she said, will you be my doula at home this time? I'll have a midwife, but will you be my doula? And she called me. She's like, hey, my midwife's on the way, but will you come too? Will you come over? And I lived right by her. So I went over there. I even checked to see how dilated she was, which, by the way, doulas don't do. But I didn't know that at the time. And she was
What is the difference between a midwife and a doula?
A midwife is basically your medical provider. A midwife does prenatal checks and assists you with your delivery, is the one responsible. A doula is a support person, an educator, a childbirth educator, your person in the delivery room helping, like just like I'll massage your feet if you need to, or I'll be like, hey, do you want to move around? But I do not speak for my client. I cannot give medical advice. We're not medical people. We don't take pulses or blood pressures. I've held the babies like afterwards when the mom's like, oh, do you want to hold her? Every client has taught me something. Every experience has been like, whoa. But the first client was probably, I mean, that's huge because and I'm not talking about the two babies that I helped with as my friends, doula, but like as an actual doula here in the Lehigh Valley. My first client, when I met her, she said, I want an epidural, I want all the drugs, and I don't want to breastfeed at all. And previously to being trained, I would have been like, oh, like not even like a week of breastfeeding. But like when I met her and she said that, I was like, okay, whatever you want. Like, because I learned like my opinion doesn't matter here. My role as a doula is to support you in whatever journey you want. If you want a fully medicated birth, that's your prerogative.
Imagine that.
I teach at Parkway Manor, but I kind of like since working. So I taught for all these years since 2005 as a classroom teacher, mostly early education, kindergarten, first grade, some preschool, a little bit second grade, but mostly like early learners learning how to speak, learning how to put sentences together, reading and writing. So these fifth graders that just finished at Parkway Manor today, they were kindergartners when I started 5 years ago. Oh, no, I guess they were first graders when I started 5 years. So anyway, it's been really cool to watch them in that capacity and to be able to support teachers in a way that, having been a teacher, even in 2005 in New Mexico, where I had no resources, all the way to like teaching in Asia, where I had a nanny and an assistant in the classroom. It was so amazing to be teaching in these other capacities. It's so different from public school. Public school, you have it all. You have all kinds of kids from all walks of life. And what I really love about Parkway Manor is the diversity. I was nervous about moving back to Pennsylvania, bringing my kids from like their exotic third culture kid life, living in Asia and experiencing all kinds of different cultures. I was like, oh no, we're going to go back to, like Pennsylvania, but it is so diverse. The whole school and the whole community is so diverse. There's so much diversity. I love it.
But you were saying that you get to sort of follow your students, and when we were lucky in my school to have a continuous sub who followed my grade. So Mrs. Feist was always there, and the kids were golden with her because you're not going to mess with her. She's always there. She was like your grandmother or your mother. It was just so cool to have this person that you could know and trust through the entire thing up through high school. It was wild. She knew us kids for 18 years. She knew each one of us. She was pretty cool.
Facebook and social media is so wild. I'm seeing all these posts of people who have graduating children, and these are kids that I was their teacher. Like I have the one girl, she was in my preschool class in Bangkok, and she just graduated from high school. It's like,
that's
we moved
fun.
to Bangkok in 2011.
So what does your future look like? Are you wanting to go back to the greater world? I would think with your 5 languages and, your ability to teach anywhere, that once your kids are grown, you don't need to stay here.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm needed, like even in the school, like little things, like a kid saying some racist comment and I just say to him, hey, that's not cool. That's kind of a racist thing to say. Don't say that.
So you spent some years outside of the country where you were the outsider. And I'm sure you see kids in the school who feel like outsiders. How does that work for you?
I think that they notice. I think that kids recognize when there's a person who's real with them and who's like, I'm always honest with the kids. Last year, I was helping out in a kindergarten class. The teacher was out for 2 days and I was subbing in her class. And she got a new kid from Egypt who didn't speak any English. Now, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, but I do not speak Arabic. But I do know a few phrases like hello and what is your name? And so I happened to be subbing in this classroom when this new kid came. It was like, I think he was there. It was like a Thursday and a Friday. And I was subbing both of those days. And right off the bat, they were like, the counselor, whoever brought him, oh yeah, he doesn't speak English. He's from Egypt. And well, my dad was born in Egypt. He's Greek, but he was born in Egypt. Right. And I was like, oh, takalam Arabi. I'm like, oh, you speak Arabic? And he looked at me and his eyes like got huge. And I was like, shway shway, which means just a little bit. Like I was like, right. Like in my very broken Arabic. And then I was like, Ismi, Miss Chris. I am Miss Chris. Ishishmik, what's your name? So just that, like literally 4 words. Like I didn't speak to him. I didn't say, welcome to Parkway Manor. We're happy to, right. I didn't say anything. But even now, he just finished first grade. And even today, he came up to me and hugged me. Like this kid who like sometimes acts out in class. And, he's like a typical little boy with a lot of energy. That first connection that he made with me, even though I didn't actually speak his language, I've always felt like a kid in my heart. My brother's only 17 months older than me. We're fairly close in age and we're close. He's a good friend of mine. But when we were younger, we went to DC with our parents just before I joined the Peace Corps. We went to DC with my mom's Greek brother. He had brought his wife and their 2 boys from Greece to visit. And so we were doing all these touristy things. We went to DC, we went to New York, and I had this wand. It was like a little wooden stick that had yarn around it that was a rainbow, and it had some tassel, like 2 tassels. And I had it with me. And I'm not really sure why I had it. I just had this wand. And at one point, my brother said, "Come on, Chris. You're an adult. Like, what are you doing? Are you trying to be silly?" Or, he said something like that. And I thought about it. And, our as human beings, our initial reaction is to like get defensive and be like, well, like, what do you care? Like, I'm doing my thing.
Right.
And then I thought, Nick, there might be, my brother's Nick. I'm like, there might be some sad kid walking around and they see some weirdo over there with a wand that gives them a little inspiration. I'm like, what does it matter? Like, I'm not drawing attention to, I'm not like, hi everyone, look at this wand. I'm just walking around with a wand. What does it matter? So I don't know. Maybe if we all embraced our inner wands and didn't really worry about
your inner fairy princess.
My goddess.
Your goddess. I'm sorry.
Princess.
I'm sorry, goddess.
And we need each other.
I talk a lot on this show about loneliness because I think that people have separated themselves from each other based on politics or based on skin color or assumptions of what that person or culture or something is about, when in reality, none of that is true. None of that is true. You can, and this, you can meet people all over the world and they are people. They're lovely. They have the same goals. They're trying to raise their kids. They're trying to get their kids not to die. Right. And this is where we are. This is, the philosophy. And I don't think it's that hard to get people talking. So that's where the public square comes from. It's like just coming together and talking, because you can make inroads with people and share ideas. And the sharing of ideas is what's really powerful.
You mentioned that, like, it doesn't matter about what, their political affiliation is and stuff. There are people at school that I've connected with who are definitely politically very different from me, but we all agree, like, we should all have health care that's not connected to work. We should all, there's certain things that, and it's like, okay, let's make it happen. If all of us are on the same page about certain things, they should
we make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. What people don't realize is that we have a couple legislators basically out of, I don't know how many million people are in this country, right? If we tell them that we're not going to put up anymore with the way things are, and they need to make it change. And, an awful lot of things happen locally. So what I'm trying to inspire people to do is worry less about what they're seeing on TV and figure out who represents them locally, and maybe go to a meeting or maybe, meet them at a debate. It's just really getting people to talk to each other, because you can actually make big changes in the world. It's like things that you've done in your life. That, to my mind, is a very strong power base when you can connect with people and they like you and trust you. And trust is everything. We can do things for each other and it's easy. It's just, I'm finding it to be a tremendous amount of fun, but then I like people.
True. Yeah, you gotta like people. Some people don't like people. That's a problem.
Well, you don't have to like people to participate. You can participate at the level that's comfortable for you. You should know your neighbor. All right. So what was your biggest challenge in your life?
And it's only recently that I realized, partly because of what you're saying, this community stuff and the fact that that I have such an impact on these kids that it makes me realize like this is actually where I'm needed. Like
Yeah.
the doula stuff is a passion, and it's something that I will do. Like maybe eventually, I can do it more of a full-time thing or have more moms that I'm serving. But I feel this like deep need for just being with kids at school who need someone like me. I guess I just acknowledge and realize that the experiences that I've had have shaped me, and I have this really unique perspective, and already there have been kids who I can see that has
Right.
impacted them. I feel like I need to keep doing that. It's almost like a calling that I can't deny. And when I was in Vietnam and my oldest came out trans, she said, I'm a girl, there's no denying it. That's when I realized, oh, if I need to speak up for trans rights, I can do that. If I need to speak up for the kids at school who people don't realize, like, maybe they're a little marginalized, or, I'll do that. I'll be that person for those kids.
There is huge value in that. Huge value, Chris. You can't say enough about having a kid have an older advocate, someone that they trust who's advocating for them. And it doesn't matter who or what you are. It could be anything, even the dorkiest computer kid, you know, maybe suffers from ADHD and doesn't feel like he's part of a group. Having somebody who understands that is just so empowering, and
Yeah.
I just think it's tremendous. So let's change the subject and do something a little bit more fun. The best meal you ate in Niger.
Oh
What
my
was the
gosh.
best meal in Niger?
Mian kuka. Mian kuka is a sauce made from the baobab leaf. So the baobab, you know what a baobab tree is? It's a tree that
I've
looks
heard of
like
it. I
it's
have
upside
no
down.
idea.
They're amazing. You can eat the bark holds a lot of water. The seed pod is like a dessert. It's like candy. But my villagers would make a sauce out of the leaves. Mian kuka, sauce of the kuka tree.
Uh-huh.
And they put that sauce um, over millet. And so you had this big bowl of like millet that looked like mashed potatoes, but it was like
Right.
thicker than mashed potatoes. And they pour the sauce on, and then you eat it with your hand, and you scoop up some millet and some of the sauce, and you eat it. But that sauce was so delicious, especially when they put peanuts in it. Mian
Cool.
kuka.
Sounds good. So what is one Lehigh Valley spot you think every neighbor should know about, but most don't?
Huh.
And it doesn't have to be a restaurant. It could be anything at all.
It's funny. I actually was going to say a restaurant. I love pho. Phenomenal at
Uh-huh.
there's a restaurant called Phenomenal over by Cedar Crest. Phenomenal. That pho is fairly. It tastes like you're in Vietnam, and the people there are Vietnamese, and they're really amazing.
What is a book you find yourself recommending?
The Power of Now.
Oh, really?
Eckhart Tolle. Have you read
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. My son just read it too. It's very interesting watching his
I
perspective.
wonder because I gave it to my oldest, but she's not ready to read it.
I would suggest listening to it in his voice to her because he's got a really interesting way of speaking.
Yeah, he's on YouTube. The whole book is on YouTube. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah, cool.
my boyfriend actually saw him. I have that book because my boyfriend gave it to me like some years ago. He was in California, and his teacher, I think, or maybe it was the chiropractor that he worked with. Jonathan, you got to come with me. And they went to a coffee shop. He's like, there's a speaker you got to hear. And they went into a coffee shop, and Jonathan said he could feel the man's presence. And so he said he bought like 5 of his books right there and gave them like one to his mom, and gave them to everyone right away.
I think you have given us a really interesting interview here.
Cool.
And I thank you for it. You're a very interesting person, and I'm glad to have met you through our friend Ed.
Thank
and
you.
Keep doing what you're doing. What one thing could a person do that would be valuable to the rest of us? What would you suggest any person do?
Smile to people when you walk by them.
There you go. That was Chris Ekonemu Olson, teacher, founder of CEO Doula Services. If you or someone you know is expecting and wants to learn more about the services Chris offers, look her up at ceodoulaservices.com. If you found this episode interesting, share it with a neighbor or two, and like and follow us wherever quality podcasts are sold. This is a public square project because there's strength in neighbors. I'm Dave Astorina. I'll see you again soon. Thanks.